mostly seen in US. It is much less. I would like to use another senior neurosurgeon for the twins. That is people with this and the and it's not that suddenly it comes over a year. But suddenly can calculate it. It is just an outside belt. This is how we do. So that is called the donor. So this is how we stitch multiple stitches. Before surgery, we want. So this is how we mark. These are the outside channels. We mark the stitch, and once we do the bypass, this is the angiogram which we go on the floor.
This is a condition called this is a post myself Dr. Rupesh, I'm a senior consultant neurosurgeon from Apollo Proton Center. So this post is about twin children who are suffering from a disease called Moyamoya disease. Both had this disease, but one was only symptomatic, other was asymptomatic. But then with investigation we found that both are affected. One was more affected than the other. So because there is no medical treatment, we have to perform a procedure called bypass. Generally bypass surgery is done for heart. For brain it is not very common indication, very rarely it is done, especially for such type of procedures, only the bypass is done. The challenges in these children were that both are twins, and the bypass procedure in brain is very challenging, technically demanding, because the vessels are too small, less than a millimeter, and they break through the stitch. They don't take the stitch, so the stitch can get blocked, the stitch can leak. So this was a very technically challenging procedure. So we have special scan sequences to identify which part of the brain is affected, which side has to be first done. So we have a special scans called MRI perfusion studies. We challenge the brain with some tablet and to find out which is the most affected side of the brain, so that we can appropriately do the bypass, particularly for that particular segment of the brain. So we found that in both the children, the left was more affected than the right. So as such, we proceeded with first on the left side, on the most symptomatic child for the first day, and the surgery took around 6 to 7 hours. And then the next day we took up the other child also, who had many minimum symptoms, but still she had the disease. So both children were in the ICU for one day. Both in the ward, they were kept for around 4 days for observation. They recovered well. We did a scan after the procedure also, and we found that the good circulation in both the both the kids. And so we were quite happy. Both the children are now gone back to their abroad, and we are on constant follow-up. They are doing well. They don't have much symptoms now. But then we need to call them, and we need to inform them that they need another angiogram, maybe after they come back to India. And if necessary, the same procedure may have to be done on the right side if needed be.
Which stage?
Well, as I was mentioning you, there are 6 stages. So the most symptomatic child came in stage 3. The other side was in stage 1. So the symptomatic was in stage 3. So now we are happy that we could stop the progression to further stage in these children. So that's all.
Is there any awareness?
As such, the awareness about this disease itself is very rare. So very few people know about. Even among the doctors also the awareness is less. That's what I should say, because this is not a disease which can be easily diagnosed, because the incidence is very less. Unless some disease is common, there can be easily diagnosed. This is not very common disease, so that is why even in those symptoms they are diagnosed late, because these symptoms are not, the awareness is not there, so we cannot, unless we do a scan, MRI scan with MRI angiogram. Even not in MRI scan also sometimes we may miss the diagnosis. So we need to do MRI angiogram in suspected children or adults, so that we can pick up this in early stage and then refer them for appropriate management to prevent further progression of the disease. Yeah, so we had these procedures are all such, they are rare, they are not done in very common places, they are done in major institutes in our country. So we contact the key persons who are doing these procedures in our country, like AIMS, PGA, NIMHANS, Chitra Tirunal. So these are the institutes that are commonly undertaking these type of procedures. So they don't have a record of these twin children undergoing this procedure. And also we did a Google search, we did a PubMed search to find out if anybody in Asia. We could find that there are some families who are affected, like mother, sisters, daughter, son and father, like that, but we don't have, some twins are reported, but we couldn't find that they underwent a bypass surgery. We could find that in Boston Children's Hospital in US there was twin boys who underwent this bypass procedure, and so this is again very uncommon situation. So because disease is rare, in twins it is much more rarer. So fortunately we could get the opportunity to treat the children, and we are happy that both the children, they have improved and they are doing well in the procedure. Usually these procedures take around 6 hours, because harvesting the vessel itself is very challenging. The donor vessel recipient donor vessel, it takes around 2 hours. The microscopic procedure will take another 2 hours, and the closure, everything put together, it will take around 5 to 6 hours easily. We need to observe them very carefully. We need to specifically maintain them in a good perfusion, because there's a high risk of these children developing stroke during surgery or immediately after surgery. So we need to have a good anesthetic backup, a good anesthetic technique also to maintain the perfusion and maintain the BP. And more importantly, we operate these children on aspirin. So there will be a lot of bleeding during the surgery, and our hemostasis, the blood field will become very, very bloody. So we need to be very meticulously doing this procedure. And post-operatively also the complications are high, because sometimes they can develop hematoma because of the aspirin. They can develop bleeding, which can cause pressure on the anastomotic segment that itself can block. So all those measures has to be taken care by us. So that is why it takes a very, very time-tested procedure, and it's a demanding procedure.
Thank you. Your name and your...
So I'm Dr. Rupesh.